But let's return to the money. So 1988, very important year in the life of Jeffrey Epstein. He leaves or basically reforms IAG. At this point, it's been 7 years. He's very important to many of the world's most influential arms dealers and other people. Almost certainly at this point is embroiled in some of these deals. This point is a very sketchy point because now he creates the J. Epstein Company. The J. Epstein Company, self-described, accepts only clients with $1 billion. This is a year where there are only 140 billionaires in all of his existence in 1988. There's not very many people who are billionaires. And to have $1 billion in cash, liquid, to be able to invest is effectively unheard of. So who are the people that this is ostensibly for? He pitched specifically as, quote, an economic advisor to the super rich. No other services have ever been advertised, and this is the source eventually of all of his wealth. And so it's somewhere around this time in the 1980s and the J. Epstein Company that he signs a client named Leslie Wexner. Wexner, one of the most important figures again in this story, really the source of much of his money and his power to the way that it eventually becomes. Leslie Wexner is one of the richest men in America, one of the richest men in Ohio. Leslie Wexner is a committed Zionist. He's donated and worked with the Israeli government, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Leslie Wexner eventually, in this time period, effectively signs over his entire portfolio and eventually leads to power of attorney being signed over to Jeffrey Epstein. You guys had a great exchange where you were like, hey, we have a decade of friendship here, and I would not sign power of attorney over to any of you. There's only one person I'm signing power of attorney to, my wife. There's nobody else who's ever going to get it.
We're supposed to do that?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying if we wanted to. I'm saying that's the only person who conceivably is ever going to get that.
What about business managers? Do they have power of attorney?
No, or they have a limited power of attorney, and that's very different than his entire control of his estate. So somewhere in this time, in the 88 to 91 period, in just 3 years, he is able to convince this man, Leslie Wexner, multi-billionaire, the founder of Victoria's Secret, to basically sign over all of his power of attorney and control of his assets. Even more importantly, over the next 5 years, he effectively begins transferring many assets from the Wexner fortune to his own personal portfolio. Wow. Multiple properties in the state of Ohio, which are actually referenced in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial for the sex trafficking purposes. Those are Wexner properties. And then the infamous, massive townhouse in Manhattan, at that time, the largest private residence, basically valued at some $70 million. Jeez. I mean, again, who in this world is transferring $70 million townhouse, largest private residence at the time in the city of New York, over to this man,
so let's
Jeffrey
make
Epstein?
Steel Man.
For what purpose? Go ahead.
Is there a purpose? For example, is he trying to avoid taxes?
Yes.
Is there what? Give me the argument outside of corruption.
Sure. Leslie Wexner has talked to his people and he's talked to people about this, and his explanation is that Epstein was a money wizard, that he simply had ideas. Is that what we call him? They said he's a wizard with money. He's the smartest man with money I've ever seen. The Steelman case, for how this has nothing to do with blackmail, is exactly what you just said. And this is eventually what's hinted at by the richest and most powerful people in the world is, guys, we were doing money laundering. It wasn't about blackmail or any of this other stuff. It was a way for us to launder our money internationally. I'll come back to it, but that's basically the excuse that Leon Black gave. Leon Black is genuinely one of the richest men in New York. He was $9 billion net worth, founder of the Apollo Group, one of the largest private equity firms in the world. From 1997 onward, he has a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein to the point where he puts him on the board of the Black Family Foundation. And it eventually comes out between 2012, 2017, he transferred $170 million to Jeffrey Epstein and to Epstein-related accounts
his argument,
for, quote, tax advice.
Now, his argument is that over that 5-year period, he gave him $170 million and saved to the tune of $1 billion.
That's what he claims.
He claims.
Yeah, but
now, if that is the case, all of us would hire Epstein immediately.
Right, that's right. But there's no way to do that legitimately. And also, if you look at all of the paper trail for this, Epstein was not a licensed financial advisor. He was not a licensed tax advice person. He was not somebody who was ever well known in the hedge fund industry. I mean, this is the question about why are these super rich people transferring all of this money to this individual? I'm willing to believe money laundering, but with the Wexner case, I just simply can't get there. Vicky Ward and James Stewart, biographers and others have looked into the story. They really believe that blackmail is somehow at the center of the story of Wexner.
I think that
this is purely speculation on my behalf.
I think that makes a lot of sense, especially for economically ignorant folks like myself, which are like, I'm not giving a fucking townhouse to anybody
That's
for
right.
any purpose.
Exactly.
But there are these certain situations where people set up these trusts, they set up these LLCs, they set up these S corps so they can put certain to avoid taxes. They create these loopholes. So there is a version where he had found a way to do this. I don't understand why passing it directly to Epstein avoids taxes, because Epstein would then have to pay those taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
So these
Exactly
are,
right.
Like, why not put it into a joint trust that Epstein has access to? Why is it specifically passed to Epstein unless
For his personal use.
Yeah, for
his personal use.
Unless
Let's be clear.
he needed it under his name to validate him to do certain
Which
things.
is what eventually we began to see with the story. And also, look, let's be honest here about Wexner. Wexner is the founder of Victoria's Secret. Like, would it be crazy to say that the founder of Victoria's Secret
coincidences.
is kind of perverted? And
Yeah.
Leslie Wexner has been photographed with all these young
Make
women.
lingerie
And
for teenagers.
it's like literally, making lingerie for teenagers. Yeah, well, I'm shocked to be
go to
told
the
that this
Amazon.
person is involved with some weird stuff. Again, look, because he's still alive and he would sue me, that is purely speculation on my part based upon publicly available information. I'm not claiming anything otherwise. But
don't they have to go find
you
barely
weird,
legal
bro.
supermodels around the world?
I mean, that's their business
live?
model,
Like,
to be clear. So,
they
like,
have
let's
to
just say
literally,
that.
when do you turn 18 so I could put you on this runway with wings?
This happens, right? So that's the person and the individual who's at the nexus of a lot of this stuff. Now, let's say then what we move from there, because that Wexner transfer sets Epstein as the king of New York, as the king of New York society.
Can I ask one more question before
go
that? Are there any people in finance that look at that transfer and they go, wow, this was a smart financial decision for Wexner?
I have not yet found a single person.
Got it.
I have not. In fact, every rich person who I have ever talked with about the Epstein thing has told me I have no idea what the fuck was going on.
And has anybody explained, Wexner or his people explained why it was advantageous to him to transfer?
He just said it was a terrible mistake and that he trusted Epstein entirely with his money. He literally called his relationship and the transfer, quote, a terrible mistake. That's the only public apology that he's ever given on the case.
It is
Wexner's
interesting.
never gone into it. By the way, he's still alive and he should answer questions.
It is interesting that we haven't seen him in an interview. Like, we've seen Prince,
he shut himself down.
But we've seen Prince Andrew in an interview.
That's right.
Like, he's maybe the only person that we haven't heard speak publicly about this. And
A little bit, but it's been years. I think in 2020 is when he gave his apology. But same with Leon Black, by the way, who resigned from his public company and has basically disappeared from New York society. Jess Staley, the former CEO of Barclays, Epstein's private banker. I'll return to him in a little bit with the Israel connection because he's a very important part of that story. But he's also resigned, and now he has he's not CEO of a publicly traded company. Doesn't need to testify. Doesn't need to give any interviews. He's filthy rich, and you know how these people operate. You can hire bodyguards and live behind a wall for the rest of your life. So that's basically where we are.
With Maxwell Sr. and when Epstein and him meet, did they do any business together that we know of?
So this is the problem. We don't have the full records, and this is part of why the release of the files is very important. And I will also return where I think defining the files as a list is very important, because that's not how it works. People seem to have it in their head that there's a ledger, that there's a black book that's like paid or have kitty tape supports Israel now. It's not how this works, guys. Like as a journalist, like what we're doing here is we're compiling information. We're looking at public stuff that cannot be explained otherwise. We're steel manning the case. We're reaching out to Leslie Wexner for comment. The IRS today, as you guys all know, has all of our information. All of the Butterfly Trust accounts connected to Jeffrey Epstein.
What's a Butterfly Trust
That was an Epstein linked account, which the New York Financial Services, by the way, you guys should take this up. Here in the state of New York, they have all access to Epstein's financial records 2013 onwards, because they fined Deutsche Bank for their business with Epstein for violating the bank rules and for violating New York State regulations. New York State has the books for his entire financial life, 2013
And didn't JP
onwards.
Morgan pay out an insane
JP
settlement?
and Deutsche Bank paid like $75 million to the Epstein victims, specifically for facilitating a lot of this trafficking. But my point is that I want those documents. I want the Butterfly Trust accounts. Leon Black, the way that he even paid Epstein, and this was only available by subpoena power that we know of, was through some private jet holding company. I mean, this stuff is all masked in a way that their names were never supposed to be on top of any of it. The only way we can get it is from release and from subpoena from the United States government. Part of why the Trump administration's decision is so very disappointing.